Good evening, everybody. Today is the 5th of July. I hope everybody had a safe and happy 4th of July weekend. So moving forward, I'm going to give a brief update on the Lynette Hooker case, but it's predominantly referring to information on Brian Hooker, her husband. Early Sunday morning, April 5th, Brian Hooker washed ashore in Marsh Harbor. He was exhausted, thirsty, and barely able to stand. For weeks, the first minutes after he reached land were a blank space in the timeline. No one knew who saw him first, who spoke to him, or what he said before authorities arrived. That missing piece has now been confirmed. There was a security guard. His name is Edward Smith, working at the Marsh Harbor boatyard. He was the first person to interact with Brian Hooker. Smith described Brian Hooker as being disoriented and physically drained, stumbling onto the property while talking about a key and a woman. He said Brian told him that he and Lynette left the Abaco Inn by a dinghy. The weather turned rough and Lynette went overboard. Smith declined to be photographed or recorded, but his statements have been verified. Smith's account aligns with the earliest version of Brian Hooker's story, but investigators now know that the timeline that Brian Hooker provided does not match the GPS data recovered from one of the electronic devices. The GPS evidence shows movements inconsistent with what Hooker told authorities, prompting the search that happened in the Sea of Abaco. On July 2nd, the U.S. Coast Guard bodycam footage was released showing the seizure of the Hooker's Soulmate. Soulmate, as evidence, is now in possession and has been. Hooker was not on board at the time. The vessel is now in U.S. custody, undergoing forensic analysis for anything that may clarify the events of that night. Hooker himself remains uncharged. He was detained for questioning by the Bahamian authorities on April 12th. He was held for 5 days and released without charge. He later traveled back to the United States to see his mother. His current whereabouts are considered in some sources to be unknown, but most people believe he is living with his daughter back in Michigan. The investigation remains active but quiet. Edward Smith's emergence fills a missing piece of the timeline, yet it also raises some new questions. Why was Hooker talking about a key? Why did his GPS movements not match his story? And why has no search been announced despite evidence prompting a shift in focus? Also, it is reported that Edward was told by Brian Hooker that Lynette went overboard with a yellow bag. However, Edward Smith and one of his co-workers who emerged about an hour after this discussion first started and Brian Hooker was still there, it was noted that Brian Hooker had a yellow bag in his possession. So, with this new information, which has just recently been announced, with a new witness, despite the evidence prompting a shift in the focus of this case again. For now, the investigation continues to analyze the Soulmate, review the GPS data, and evaluate Smith's statements alongside the rest of the case file. Lynette Hooker remains missing, and the case remains unsolved. There is rumor, I have not confirmed it as evidence or proof or by any law enforcement, that the United States is trying to get a team of searchers out there. I've heard of possibly the Cajun Army going out, if it's approved by the Bahamian government, to do a onshore deep investigation. It is not confirmed that Lynette Hooker officially went overboard. That has not been proven. So, could she be buried on land, or do you think she's at sea? I'd love to hear your comments, and I will continue to update you. I hope everybody has a good evening. As always, please stay safe. And for now, PI 56 is out.